Like you thought he was dead?
Yeah.
When I saw the hit, I mean, it was a really late hit. Like it was a dirty hit.
Biting glass and spitting nails. And
we knew he was going to handle himself the right way, and he would play the right way.
Scott Stevens played 22 NHL seasons. His teammates remember the ultimate captain. His opponents remember the shoulder they spent every shift looking for. Others still believe the way he played crossed the line. The answer depends on who you ask. Stevens is hard to sum up because his numbers and his reputation pull in opposite directions. He played 1,635 regular season games. He put up 908 points and 2,785 penalty minutes. He captained all 3 New Jersey championship teams, won the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP in 2000, and made the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. That's not the record of a man who only hit people. Those 908 points are among the highest totals any defenseman has ever put up. So the question that follows him around is really 2 questions. Was he an elite defenseman whose physical game became bigger than the rest of his career? Or a devastating hitter whose reputation has buried how good a defenseman he actually was? Before the hits came to define him, Stevens was one of the league's most productive defensemen. He won a Memorial Cup in 1982 with his hometown Kitchener Rangers. Washington took him 5th overall that same year. He stepped straight into the NHL at 18 and made the all-rookie team. He was physical from day one, with the temper and the penalty minutes to match, but early on, he was a producer as much as a punisher. He topped 50 points 8 times in his first 12 seasons. His career high came in 1993-94 when he put up 78 points and finished 2nd in Norris Trophy voting, 4 points behind Ray Bourque.
At 18 when he arrived, and we were like, oh my God, this guy's the real deal.
The people who were there watched an 18-year-old who had already carried himself like a veteran and then watched him become a defenseman who could do everything. The hitting was part of the package. It was not yet the whole story. One part of the Devils' dynasty often gets skipped: how Stevens ended up in New Jersey. He didn't choose it, and he didn't want to go. It happened through 2 of the strangest restricted free agent sequences in league history. In 1999, Stevens signed an offer sheet with St. Louis, and Washington declined to match, a decision that cost the Blues 5 first-round picks. The next year, St. Louis signed Brendan Shanahan away from New Jersey. The 2 teams could not agree on what the Devils were owed in return, so the case went to arbitration. On September 3, 1991, retired Judge Edward Houston awarded Scott Stevens to New Jersey as compensation. The man who would become the face of the franchise, the captain of 3 Cup teams, the player whose banner hangs in that building, did not pick the Devils. A ruling assigned him to them. He resisted reporting at first, and it took a short holdout before he ever pulled on the jersey. The face of the New Jersey Devils had to be forced to become a New Jersey Devil. Ask the men who played with him, and you get a different Scott Stevens. They talk less about the hits than about the standard he set every day. Sheldon Surrey came into the league as a young defenseman in New Jersey, and he credits Stevens with showing him what a professional looked like.
And Scotty Stevens showed me what it was to come to work every day, every practice, and be a professional.
Sometimes the games were easy because I didn't have to play against Scott Stevens. I didn't have to shoot on the net against Marty Brodeur.
2 of the hardest opponents Bobby Holik faced all season were waiting for him at practice every day. That intensity did not make Stevens unapproachable.
He pulled me aside. He goes, "Hey, Mike." And he took his glove off and to shake my hand. And I shake his hand. He goes, "Welcome to the NHL."
The intimidation opponents felt on game night was something his teammates lived through every morning. For more hockey stories that go beyond the highlights, subscribe to Puck Talk TV. We use the players' own words to tell the story. Now, about the hits. The common version of the story is that Stevens waited for players skating with their heads down and blew them up. That is not how he described it, and it's not what the film shows. Stevens talked about seeing a funnel form. When a forward carried the puck toward his defense partner, the partner steered that forward into a narrowing lane, and Stevens read it early and crossed over to meet him right where the lane closed. Anticipation and timing did as much work as force did, and he arrived a half second before the puck carrier understood where he'd been hurted.
You have to see the play developing and realize, okay, we have numbers here, we have people back,
that's going to allow me to step over and shut this play down at the blue line or make a hip check or a big open ice hit because we have numbers.
That's the part the highlight compilations leave out. The hit was the last frame of a play Stevens had already solved seconds earlier. By 1995, that skill had become the identity of an entire team. In Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, Stevens caught Detroit's Slava Kozlov in the middle of the ice. The point is not that one hit won the series, it's the message New Jersey was sending. The middle of the ice belonged to the Devils, and anyone who skated into it was going to pay for the trip. New Jersey swept Detroit for the first Stanley Cup in franchise history. Stevens was in his 13th NHL season, and he later admitted that finally winning lifted a real fear that a great career might end with no championship at all. And then came the hit that made him a legend and a lightning rod at the same time. The 2000 Eastern Conference Final. Philadelphia led 3-1, and New Jersey clawed back to force a Game 7. Eric Lindros had only just returned from another concussion, one of several that season. 7 minutes and 50 seconds into that game, he carried the puck through the middle with his head down.
I'll never forget watching that.
He plowed through the middle like he came right down the gut, and it just like bango.
Stevens met him shoulder to jaw. No penalty was called. Lindros was knocked unconscious, and his helmet came off as he fell. Lindros never played another game for Philadelphia. He returned to the NHL later with other teams, but his time as a Flyer ended on that hit. This is where the players stop agreeing. Under the rules of 2000, the hit was legal. NHL.com would later describe it as a legal check for its era, with Stevens' shoulder connecting with Lindros' jaw. But legal and acceptable were not the same thing to everyone who saw it.
You know, he targeted the wrong guys at very vulnerable times, and he never answered the bell. So, Scott Stevens, a tough guy. Come on, give me a break.
That is Domi's view. Stevens' own account of the way he played is very different. Stevens was asked about the accusation, and he chose not to engage with it, saying he wanted the conversation to stay focused on his career. Elsewhere in the same interview, though, he defended the way he played. He said he never wanted to injure anyone, that he tried to stay inside the rules, and that he concentrated on keeping his elbows down and hitting with his shoulder or his hip.
There's no question. I never wanted to hurt anybody. I just wanted to play within the rules, and I believe I did that very well, and something you have to work on, and it's kind of an art. It's not easy to do, but like I said, I really focused on keeping the elbows down, using the shoulder or the hip, and making a good clean hit when I played the game.
He also said that he is not comfortable with this one collision becoming the defining moment of a 22-year career. The hit was not penalized under the standards of its day. That doesn't mean every player who watched it thought it was fine. That tension is why people are still arguing about it more than a quarter century later. If the Lindros hit divided people, the next one has aged even faster. Game 6 of the 2000 Stanley Cup Final. Stevens hits Anaheim's Paul Kariya after Kariya had already moved the puck. Kariya went down and lay motionless. He left the game. Then, in one of the strangest moments in finals history, he came back and scored.
It looked so bad. When he was almost 1 minute, like he didn't move there's no movement. It was scary.
I've hit a lot of people, but I've always never wanted to hurt anybody and wanted to make sure they got up and played again.
Kariya has said he has no memory of the hit or the goal he scored afterward. But after watching the replay, he called the check late and dirty.
I don't know how long I was knocked out on the ice, but it was a long time. That's like getting knocked out in a boxing match, going back into the dressing room, and then starting another boxing match.
3 men, 3 completely different perspectives on the same 10 seconds. Modern concussion protocol almost certainly would not have let Kariya back on the ice that night. One fact gets misremembered constantly. That hit did not end his career. Kariya played through the 2009-10 season, sat out the following year because of concussion symptoms, and then retired in 2011. So the question everyone eventually asks, could Scott Stevens play in today's NHL? Rule 48 arrived in 2010 and was broadened the following year. Today, the key questions are whether the head was the main point of contact and whether that contact was avoidable. Worth being precise, though. That rule came a decade after the Lindros hit and 7 years after Kariya. Stevens didn't cause it, and not every hit he threw was a headshot. Stevens could play today. He'd just have to change. The Lindros and Kariya hits would receive far greater scrutiny now. Each could trigger a review and supplemental discipline, and the lateness of the Kariya hit would raise an interference question on top of that. Stevens himself would still be an elite NHL defenseman. 900 points, elite conditioning, and that kind of anticipation play in any era. The skating, the positioning, and the reads don't go out of style. The open question is how much of Scott Stevens' mythology survives without the collisions that built it. That's why the testimony never completely lines up. They remember different men because they didn't all meet the same one. His teammates knew the captain, who practiced harder than everyone in the building. His opponents knew the shoulder that appeared out of the edge of their vision.
For me personally, I knew when I was playing against Scott to make sure I kept my head up, and not only for part of the shift, but for the whole shift.
There is one more layer. The man whose legacy became inseparable from concussions was ultimately forced from the game by post-concussion syndrome. He missed most of 2003-2004, retired after 1,635 games, and entered the Hall of Fame in 2007. They disagreed about almost everything else. That was his real impact. Everyone knew exactly where number 4 was.